Alright everyone, here we are on the KTM 2026 1390 Super Adventure R, and we're already in the dirt. How fitting is that? Look at this thing. I like the Predator style front end of this motorcycle. It looks definitely pretty good. A little bit softer I'd say than the last version. A little bit more neutral, which I like. I think it looks pretty cool. We've got all of our stuff loaded up. We got our backpack on. Let's giddy up. Seat height on this motorcycle is pretty tall, so it's going to require us some contortions to get on. But let's go. Let's gas this thing up. There is the keyless ignition. We got all of our stuff right here, and let's hit the road. Alright everyone, here we are on the KTM 1390 Super Adventure R, and the ergonomics on this bike, they're pretty nice. I like how tall this bike rolls around the road. When you're riding down the road, you kind of feel like you're in a lifted truck or a big SUV. You just have a tall, commanding presence. You can really see far in front of you just because you're so high. The motorcycle, for having a 75-degree V-twin, this motorcycle is not as narrow as you would think it would be, especially in the seating position. There are other adventure bikes out there that feel a lot more narrow in the midsection. But I wouldn't say it's absurdly wide, but just not as wide as you'd think a skinny V-twin would be. Still nice. I like the foot pegs, nice and grippy, not too high, not too low. This handlebar, again, it's not the most wide handlebar, which is actually pretty good. I mean, when you think about it, for the terrain that you might ride with this bike, you don't want a crazy wide handlebar. This motorcycle, you want to be able to get in and out of tight places. So a little bit of narrowness in the handlebar is nice. The bend is it's a pretty conservative bend. It's not crazy tall, it's not crazy low. It's maybe a little bit low, but I wouldn't say crazy low. And it's got some rearward sweep, which is good for all of us street bike riders. But even in the standing position, this motorcycle feels nice. Feels good, but this is where you feel the handlebar is a little bit low. Alright, let's get going here. Oh, this engine. This thing's got some balls. I like it, folks. Alright, getting on the freeway at 86 miles per hour. This thing has got some get up and go. Let's turn on cruise control. Just by this yellow light right there. And cruise control is active, and we are rolling, folks. 90 miles per hour on the dash. Don't even look at that. This vertical stack dash is very nice, very easy to read, right in your face, right where you want it to be. I'd say we're doing pretty good. Let's go into the menu system. Let's push some buttons while we're riding. Obviously we're riding in street mode, but we can switch sport, rain, off-road, and rally. We'll just leave it in street because that's what we're doing. We're street biking. Of course, we can use this thumb button right here to maneuver through some of the other settings right here. Battery voltage, daytime, odometer, fuel economy, 39 miles per gallon. I wouldn't say that's very bad at all for a 1350cc V-twin engine. Let's scroll down, scroll to the right. And there's that giant moving map. How cool is that, folks? We got a giant moving map. We can also use our gloves. How neat is that? It's just like a smartphone you'd have in your pocket. Alright, folks, we're going to lap up some miles here. We'll check in with you in a little bit. Alright, everyone, here is the American Southwest lane filtering test. And despite this bike being a little wide for a 75-degree V-twin, it's still pretty narrow overall. It's not like it's got an inline 4 engine. To be fair, inline 4 engine equipped bikes are pretty narrow these days, but you get the drift. And I'd say it's pretty good. Again, you know, that tall, commanding riding position really helps. You just feel like you're in a lifted truck, mildly lifted truck, or a big SUV. Good commanding presence. Look at this. This motorcycle has cellular data service. So there's a eSIM card built into the motorcycle. So we have cellular data, which gives us this turn-by-turn direction if we want it, with the navigation right on the screen. How cool is that? I think it's pretty cool. We're going to zoom out, show you exactly where we are in the American Southwest. We're going to still keep our eyes on the pavement ahead. And yeah, this is a pretty comfortable place to be. This V-twin engine, this thing definitely has some vibration to it, but I'd say KTM did a good job of damping that vibration. It's a pretty cozy ride here in the cockpit. You certainly feel the vibration, but it's not off-putting. It actually kind of just makes you feel like you're riding a motorcycle. It makes you feel like you're alive. Feel a little bit in the foot pegs in the handlebar, but again, it's not too much. So good job, KTM, trying to dampen some of those inherent vibrations from that narrow 75-degree V. Alright, folks, just a quick update. We're going to get back to it. Alright, everyone, we made it at the high desert. This used to be Comp Edge. This used to be a really fun motocross track right here back in the old days. RIP. Back to the 1390 Super Adventure. This has been a really nice ride so far. We're cruising. The only real caveat is the mercury's dropped and there's no heated grips. At least I can't find any. I go into the menu here. I don't see any heated grips. I don't see any dedicated button for heated grips either, which is kind of crazy. You have a $20,000+ liter and above sized adventure bike with no heated grips. Yet the KTM 990 Duke and the RC 990R have the option of having heated grips. That's right on the display. I believe it's an accessory, but it's integrated into the display. Kind of crazy. KTM, where's the heated grips? Alright, everyone, yet another awesome SoCal motocross track that's gone. RIP. This is Racetown 395. You can see the jumps right there. I used to love that track as well. Back to the 1390 Super Adventure. We are averaging right now, I think it says it here somewhere. Let's go back in here. We are averaging 39 miles per gallon, which is dang good out of this 1350cc 75-degree V-twin. This thing's a pussycat at low RPM. I really like how flexible this engine is. You give her the berries and she goes, but you short shift it and she just rides like a pussycat and has nice torque and is very, very smooth. So far, so good. This windscreen does an okay job at deflecting wind. It could be a little bit taller. The forward fairing on this bike is pretty small too. It's clear that KTM is more of a dirt bike off-road company with how narrow this front end is. It's actually kind of crazy because the 890 Adventure R, which is the mid-size plus adventure touring bike, that actually has a little bit more of a broad front fairing. It does a better job of blocking the wind, oddly enough. You'd think that this would be its premier touring bike, but oddly enough, the 890 Adventure R does a little bit better job of blocking wind than this thing. Kind of strange, but that's the facts. All right, folks, we're gonna keep on logging miles and try to pass some of these BS cars. We'll check in with you in a little bit. Well, everyone, look at this beautiful mountainous landscape. We're finally out of the city and out in the open road where we should be and where this 1390 Super Adventure R belongs. We've been riding in street mode. How about we put it in sport mode? You hit the mode button right here. Hit it again, sport mode. Hit this button. Deactivate CC first, so we'll roll the throttle forward. Deactivate that. Back to sport mode. And now we're in sport mode. Close the throttle. Ooh, you can feel how much more torquey that is right away. Now, we can scroll here into ride mode set and we can adjust some of the parameters. ABS mode, we have road and off-road, so 2 settings. MTC, motorcycle traction control, and motorcycle slip regulator. We have off and we have sport. Off and sport, those are the 2 settings. Engine brake, we have engine brake +2 to -2. Let's do -2, so not a lot of engine brake. Let's try that. Close throttle. Hill control. Hill control allows the motorcycle to automatically hold the rear brake at an incline to help you launch. I think it's kind of a silly feature. If you're riding these type of bikes and you can't do that, you probably shouldn't be riding them. And you might be thinking, well, that's like not a very nice thing to say. But these bikes are heavy, they're powerful, and it's just a silly nanny feature that I don't think is even needed. Electronic quick shifter, of course we need that, because we love making full throttle upshifts and downshifts without having to use the clutch. Look at this, folks. This is absolutely beautiful. Let's see where we are. We're out in the middle of the sticks right now, but that's right where we want to be. So far, so good. This bike's fairly comfortable. The Rally Tall seat, KTM always does a really nice job on the seats on their street bike, and the 890 Adventure R has got a really nice seat. For whatever reason, the seat doesn't feel quite as comfortable as I remember with the 890 Adventure R. To be fair, I'm wearing a fanny pack and a backpack with probably about 10 pounds of gear total on it, so maybe that's the reason. But we're still having a good time and logging miles and having fun. All right, folks, back to riding. Check it with you in a little bit. All right, folks, another cool feature on this 1390 Super Adventure is you can literally self-navigate while you're riding. And so you go in here, you go to the navigation here, and you can select your destination and route yourself to wherever you want to go. And it shows you moving map exactly where you are and how many miles to your destination, the speed limit. So make sure you're not speeding too much. And I think that is pretty cool. The only caveat is the processing power isn't the fastest on this thing. So sometimes when you make your movements, it takes a second or two for it to kick in. There's our destination, Bishop, California. Right there, 73 miles away, 1 hour, 9 minutes at 73 miles per hour. Let's speed up a little bit with this cruise control so we get there in a more timely fashion. Let's go. Inside the navigation menu, we can also add waypoints, so we can add stops where we want to stop at. There's the final destination. And this is some of the settings. Allows freeways, allows tolls, allows ferries, and avoid dirt. You can of course change that. Allow dirt. Of course we want to allow dirt. We love dirt. And that is really neat. Alright, folks, we're just passing through Lone Pine. This is a old world city where they used to film Hollywood movies in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s. This is called the Alabama Hills, and this area is so special because it has mountains, snow-covered mountains in the background, and then some other shorter mountains in the foreground. So it's got this dual density mountain cover that's very unlike anywhere else in the world. And the shorter mountains in front of us are brown versus the grayish snow-capped rocky ones in the background. So very cool, very interesting geographically speaking. And it was a site where the natural light from the gray hills with the snow-covered mountain caps would provide basically a natural light box. So it would naturally light the inside of these mountains, just give it a really cool cinematic hue and color, which you can see even with our own eyes through our Shoei X2 Hornet X2 dark smoke face shield. Very, very cool. And that's what riding these bikes is all about: seeing the sights and sounds, covering miles, and having a good time. All right, everyone, look how beautiful it is. We are living life. Now that we've rolled a couple hundred miles on this bike, this aftermarket KTM Power Sports tall seat is definitely not the most comfortable for long range highway touring. It's got like a little bit of a rounded hump, and it's kind of crazy how the 890 Adventure R is just crazy comfortable. I think it's one of the best seats of a motorcycle, period, then. And this tall seat's just not as comfortable. Now, we talked about how the 890 Adventure R, it actually has a more broad front fairing, but this windscreen is a little bit taller than the 890 Adventure R. So it's kind of a mix. The 890 Adventure R kind of cuts through the air a little bit better through the midsection, but this has a taller windscreen. So it really depends. If you have the 890 Adventure R and you fit a taller windscreen, you would probably match. You'd probably be a couple 5%, 10% ahead of this thing in terms of the comfort, and then paired with that 890 Adventure R seat. Ooh, that is a good bike for touring. Alright folks, so far so good. 40 miles per gallon. We've done really well on this bike, and again, this engine just purrs. It just purrs at low RPM. It just makes it for a really easy riding bike. And the suspension, this 9-inch suspension travel does a great job of soaking up the rough stuff and just delivers you to your destination very nicely. Wow, everyone, look at this. Look how beautiful it is. This is crazy. We got the steep faces of the Sierra Nevadas in front of us. Let's do the acceleration test, see what this KTM bike's got. Let's give her the berries. Whoa! Whoa! Wheelie! She's got some steam, folks. Alright everyone, this concludes our freeway portion of our test. Now we're going to load the KTM in the back of the van and make our way up to Eastern Oregon in the van. That was a good 300 some miles we logged today on this bike. And it's really nice, especially in these twisties. That's easily the highlight of this bike, is the twisty pavement. We're able to feel this 1350cc 75 degree V-twin and give her some berries. Alright folks, a slight detour, which means we get to test the off-road worthiness of the 1390 Super Adventure. I'd say it's pretty off-road worthy, and we are almost to the conclusion of our ride. Well, everyone, we did it, 300 some miles on the 1390 Super Adventure R, and it was quite nice. This aftermarket Power Parts rally seat's not my favorite. It's a little bit tall here in the center, which makes it not as comfortable as maybe as a stock. But besides that, this is a great bike. That engine purrs like a pussycat down low. We got 40 miles per gallon, big 6-gallon fuel tank, relatively comfortable. A little bit more windscreen protection than the 890 Adventure R, a little bit narrower through the midsection, but this taller windscreen really offsets that. And it's a nice bike for logging miles and going places. Alright folks, stay tuned for the next episode where we're going to ride this thing at the giant loop rally in Eastern Oregon. As always, make sure to surf on over to moto-1.com, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for hanging on with us.